In an industry driven by ego, image, and influence, few rivalries have been as publicly simmering, tension-filled, and quietly brutal as the decade-long beef between Frank Ocean and Chris Brown. What started as a seemingly harmless tweet in 2011 quickly escalated into a studio brawl, homophobic slurs, Grammy night snubs, as well as a lyrical takedown that lives in infamy. This is the story of how two of R&B's most influential artists became long-standing enemies, starting from 2011 all the way till now. The feud ignited in June 2011 when Chris Brown tweeted what seemed like a compliment, writing, "I f with Frank Ocean. Reminds me of a young James Fauntleroy or Kevin Costner." But you see, to Frank Ocean, this was Chris undermining his singing capability, because both of these artists are known to be better writers and not as great of singers. Roughly 3 hours later, Frank Ocean fired back, saying, "I f with Chris Brown. Reminds me of a young Cisco or Ike Turner." And Cisco's known for dyeing his hair just like Brown, while Ike Turner was known to be an abuser to his wife, Tina Turner. And that was Frank Ocean alluding to Chris Brown's felony assault on Rihanna, which occurred in 2009. This instantly escalated tensions, and Chris Brown didn't hold back, responding, "It was a compliment, you b-." He then mentioned that Frank should be more grateful, because the mention helped him boost the visibility of his mixtape, Nostalgia Ultra. Tyler, the Creator, a close friend and collaborator of Frank Ocean through their group Odd Future, immediately came to his defense. And the reason I say was a close friend is because the two of them just unfollowed each other and there might be some beef between them. And I just made a video on the topic, which I'll have linked down below. In a series of fiery tweets, Tyler mocked Brown, calling him a loser and ridiculing his temper. Even The Game, known for his controversial past, stepped in, pleading publicly with the trio to stop beefing and focus on the music instead. But the damage had already been done. And just a few weeks later, Twitter fingers almost turned into a fade, because a video surfaced showing Frank Ocean being chased by Chris Brown's cousins after he pulled up to a dance rehearsal in LA looking for Chris Brown. Following the incident, Tyler and Chris Brown would jump on Twitter to clarify that there was no beef, with Chris Brown saying, "This beef is stupid. At Frank Ocean, I respect your music as well as you and Odd Future. Ain't beefing with nobody. Y'all can have that. Love." And Tyler, the Creator, tweeted, "At Chris Brown, shit got too real on both ends. I'm over it. We're all over this shit. It's stupid as f***. Swag it out." And a few years later, one of Chris Brown's cousins, T-Rail, who was actually in the car that was chasing Frank Ocean, would address what happened that day on a No Jumper interview years later, apologizing for what went down.
There's a student in Frank Ocean. I had to bang on him.
That was a crazy time. Let me just explain it. That is so fucking embarrassing. I apologize, Frank, for that. Frank is from Los Angeles, California. He not a mark. He not a buster. These niggas was getting into it.
He got fame.
And when niggas was seeing him, he wasn't turning nothing down. Frank ain't no bitch. So they seen it at the studio. Chris, like, you know, because they was having already problems. They was having, you know,
him and Chris Brown.
They was doing their thing. They going back and forth, even with Tyler or whatever. They had jokes, but these niggas, Tyler and these niggas ain't no busters. They just on their thing, cracking jokes. But when you see them, they were whatever. So these niggas seen him outside at a studio, and Frank like, "What's happening? You niggas blah 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 blah." I'm like, but I'm walking out to the and these niggas just sitting there standing in the street, and I'm like, "Oh no, he's not about to do us like that." He like, "Yeah, whatever." But I'm out there now. Yeah, Mark ass bitch. I'm like,
was this because of the Fan of a Fan mixtape you took it on?
Nah. I don't know what was over me. Him and Chris was just going back and forth, but I just felt like he was marking them niggas out too bad. And I was out there, and I was like, he got me all the way up. Let's go get this nigga, cuz he gonna run this fade then since he with the. And then we chasing him down. That's why he like, "Man, I don't even know you." You know what I'm saying? Because I'm turned up. I'm like, "You get out the car today."
You talking about groovies?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? He ended up driving off. Thank you, God. You know what I'm saying? You end up driving off doing your thing because he knew like this. He was like, kept saying like, "I don't know you. This the fight with these niggas. I don't really know you." So I'm like, yeah, whatever the case may be. But that's what happened.
Sean Kingston, who claims to have witnessed the fight, would state in an interview with Vlad TV that the fight was not Brown's fault, and that Frank was the aggressor.
The Frank Ocean thing, I was there in the studio, that was not his fault. I don't care, that was not his fault.
You were there?
I was in the studio, like where the fight was. I was in the lounge room, and I came out and seen like a little bit of the fight. It was not his fault. And then when I heard the story and I read, and then I played back the camera, they played back the camera for me, it was not his fault. You know what I'm saying? He was reaching out trying to give Frank Ocean a dap. Frank Ocean didn't want to give him back a dap. And you know what I'm saying? Frank Ocean was talking like, oh, because I guess he had some Crip guys with him. He was like, Ray, whatever. And that's what happened. You know what I'm saying?
In 2012, Frank Ocean would post an open letter to his Tumblr, coming out as gay. And immediately Chris Brown hopped on Twitter saying, "My whole opinion on the Frank Ocean subject is, love who you want to love. It's your decision. People stop searching for bullshit." Despite it seeming that the beef was ending, on January 27th, 2013, everything would boil over once again. You see, both artists were at Westlake Recording Studios in West Hollywood when an argument erupted over a parking space. According to Ocean's statement and multiple eyewitnesses, Brown approached Ocean's car and extended his hand out. Ocean refused the handshake, telling him the parking spot was already taken. And that's when things escalated. Frank Ocean claimed that Brown punched him in the face and that two of Brown's associates joined in, backing him into a corner and trying to kick him. According to a police report obtained by TMZ, Ocean said he heard someone shout during the attack and that Brown threatened him, allegedly saying, "We can bust on you too." Now, I don't know what kind of ditty he got going on over there, but don't bust on me, Chris Brown. Frank Ocean suffered a cut on his temple and another on his index finger, an injury that would later impact his Grammy performance. He tweeted later that night, "Got jumped by Chris Brown and a couple of guys. I only wish Everest was there. Cut my finger, now I can't play with two hands at the Grammys." The incident was investigated by LA County Sheriff's Department, but by the time deputies arrived, Brown and his crew had already left. While Frank Ocean declined to press charges, publicly and according to TMZ, he expressed the darker truth in private, telling police that he wanted to see Brown in jail. On his Tumblr blog, Ocean later wrote, "No criminal charges, no civil suit. Forgiveness, albeit difficult, is wisdom. Peace, albeit trite, is what I want in my short life." Just weeks after the fight, Frank Ocean attended the 55th Annual Grammy Awards, where he won Best Urban Contemporary Album for Channel Orange, beating both Chris Brown and Miguel. The entire audience gave him a standing ovation. Everybody except for Chris Brown. In a moment that went viral, Brown was seen seated and visibly unimpressed as the room applauded Ocean's win. Frank, unfazed, delivered his speech and exited the stage with grace. And this Grammy moment became a symbolic full-circle moment for Frank. A win not just in awards, but in public validation. Months later, on August 20th, 2013, Frank Ocean finally addressed the altercation directly in music. On the track Sunday by Earl Sweatshirt, Frank delivered one of his sharpest verses to date, calling out the fight, the homophobia, and the Grammy moment in a single verse.
I mean, he called me I was just calling his bluff. I mean, how am I gonna be when I'm aiming my gun?
He then addressed his Grammy triumph.
And why's his mug all bloody? That was a 3-on-1. Standing ovation at Staples. I got my Grammys in gold.
And later on Tumblr, Frank Ocean previewed a song called Versace Freestyle Remix, where he would diss Chris Brown saying, "You could stay seated. I'm taking that Grammy. Your music is sloppy."
Just this week, Frank Ocean slammed Chris Brown in his new Versace freestyle. The 25-year-old singer revealed parts of his lyrics on Tumblr. A portion of the textedic document that directly takes shots at Breezy reads, "You could stay seated. I'm taking that Grammy. Your music is sloppy."
And since then, Frank Ocean has said nothing during interviews, avoided lawsuits, and declined retaliation. But in those two verses, he unloaded every piece of emotional baggage left from the fight, mocking Brown's insecurity, his violence, as well as his failure to publicly acknowledge defeat. Chris Brown on his part did not respond to either disses publicly. Throughout 2012 and 2013, the public and music media closely followed the beef. Sites like Kanye Titha ran editorial pieces and polls asking fans who was winning in the feud. Memes and tweets flooded the timeline, some praising Frank for taking the high road, while others mocked Chris for repeatedly being caught in public outbursts. For Frank, he became something of a symbol of artistic integrity and quiet resilience, while Chris Brown was frequently criticized for his inability to avoid violence or conflict, even when it damaged his reputation. Following the 2013 parking lot scuffle, in 2014, Frank Ocean's cousin Shakir Duarte sued Brown for over $3 million for injuries suffered at the hands of Brown and his bodyguards. TMZ reported that this case was settled by Brown for less than $20,000. Over a decade later, there has been no apology, no reconciliation, and no collaboration. The beef really just stayed frozen in time. Brown continued to release music at a rapid pace, though his career was often overshadowed by further legal problems and controversies. Frank Ocean, on the other hand, took a more reclusive route, rarely going on interviews, dropping Blonde in 2016, and literally just retreating from the spotlight with each passing year. The Grammy clip of Brown refusing to stand continues to circulate whenever discussions of pettiness or industry beefs come up. And Sunday remains one of the most direct lyrical checkmates in modern R&B history. The decade-long feud of Frank Ocean and Chris Brown wasn't built on diss tracks or media rants. It was fueled by ego, miscommunication, and a clash of values. You see, Frank represented emotional depth, queer expression, and restraint, while Chris embodied volatility, aggression, and traditional male masculinity. And their differences weren't just personal, they symbolized the wider cultural shift in the music industry. And while there might never be a true collaboration between the two, their beef remains one of the most revealing and symbolic beefs in R&B history. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. We're a brand new channel, and in the past 14 days, we've already dropped 6 videos. This is your chance to be one of the first 100 subscribers of a channel that will be at 1 million. But for now, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Peace.